Tuesday, April 28th. Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Here.
Stevens,
Here.
Cox,
Here.
Brown,
Here.
Harrison,
Here.
Pritchard,
Here.
Mayor.
Here. We do have a quorum. Councilwoman Harrison, would you lead us in the invocation and pledge, please?
Oh, surely. Everyone please stand. We'll pray first. Our Heavenly Father, we come to you once again in the precious name of Jesus. This is the day that you have made, and Lord, contrary to how things are going, we can rejoice and be glad in it. Father, I ask you to bless each one that's assembled here, especially those that are making decisions, Father, for this city. We ask you to just give us the spirit of wisdom and knowledge and understanding of the things to do as well as the things not to do. Father, we ask you to bless all those that are in the assembly here, that are in the gallery area. I ask you to please remember all the city workers who had early retirement, those that are being furloughed, the business people, and those that are battling this coronavirus. Lord, not only lest we sound selfish, Father, please remember everyone worldwide that are going through these health and economic crises. Lord, we'll just be mindful to give you the praise, and we invite your precious Holy Spirit into this service, and we'll be into this meeting, and we'll be mindful to give you the praise in Jesus' holy name. Amen. Are we ready for the pledge? All right, attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
Okay, so.
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated.
We are on citizens' comments on non-agenda items. Residents may address the council regarding an item that is not listed on the agenda. Residents must provide their name and address, and council requests that comments be limited to 5 minutes. I do have 4 people signed up, but I think they're all concerned with the agenda item. Is there anyone here that wants to speak on a non-agenda item? Seeing no one, I'll move to the consent agenda. All matters listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted in one motion. There will not be separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. The agenda tonight consists of A, approval of minutes from March 31st, 2020 special meeting of the McAlester City Council. B, approval of minutes from the April 14th, 2020 regular meeting of the McAlester City Council. C, approval of claims for April 8th, 2020 through April 21, 2020. D, consider and act upon authorizing the mayor to sign the annual engagement letter with Crawford & Associates, P.C. for the period of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. E, accept and place on file the McAlester Defense Support Association third quarter report for fiscal year 1920. Confer with the mayor's reappointments of Dr. Michael Boyer, Stephen Otis, David Werner, Mike Hogan, Randy Walters, and Les Cashmere to the Airport Advisory Board for terms to expire April 30th, 2022. G, concur with mayor's appointment of John Alford as a replacement for Ben Kennedy to the Airport Advisory Board for a term to expire April 30th, 2022. Would anyone like anything removed? Councilwoman Harrison?
This is Councilwoman Harrison. C, D as in dog, and F as in Frank.
Any others? In that case, I take a motion to approve items A, B, E, and G. Motion, Councilman Smith. I'll second. Any discussion? Corey, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and motion carries. Okay, Councilwoman, item C.
All right. Thank you so much. Now, let's look at the claims. Claims April the 8th through April the 21st, 2020. And that would be under section C. Can you hear me okay? I have a loud voice, so. Am I predicting? All right. I was wondering if, I know you're shorthanded now with furloughs and all that, Mr. Stasiak, but are there some items that's missing? I don't see anything about the economic development part in here, nor do I see anything about the payroll expenditures. Is there a reason for that?
Payroll expenditures are not on the claims.
Okay, what about the economic development? There's
There
nothing.
probably weren't any expenditures during the period, during the 2-week period.
And if they're not, should there be an insert so we would know that?
Normally, we just don't put anything in there
Okay,
because there's nothing to report.
there's nothing to report, all right,
Cla-
okay.
Claims are essentially bills of the city.
Right. Let's go over here to, is this something we need to be talking about at another meeting, or do we talk about it here?
You're certainly welcome to question anything.
Okay, all right, let's go over here to, page 3 of the general fund. Could someone tell us, who the Merriweather Group is? It says they, study benefits, and that's $23,050.
That is a contract that this council approved about 4 months ago for a wage survey for all of our city employees.
And that was, of course, when we thought we had more money, correct?
Well, the money was allocated, yes.
That money
when
was
we had the
allocated.
money, yes.
All right, let's look over here at page 7. And it seems like over $7,000 was, used. I'm sorry, 7? I may have to take this mask off before enough, okay. Let's see. Okay. All right, we're at page 7, and it looks like over $7,000 was used for purchasing of items of, for a building that's not in use, I guess. That's a nice way to put it. So were these purchases made after the official executive order for the businesses to be closed?
They were not. They were put into effect before the coronavirus hit, and it was in preparation of setting up the Oakland Theater for the gift shop. That's about 4,000 of it. The other 3,700 is for some ceiling fans and doors at Chaddock Park. We were rebuilding some of the bathrooms at Chaddock Park, and that was also prior to the events of COVID-19.
All right, so when we look at capital outlay, technically, that means a liability, correct? When we're looking at budgets, when we see the word capital outlay, does that basically mean something that's a liability?
Capital is something that has value.
Right,
over
like
a
capital
period.
assets would be something that's a,
Yes.
okay. And, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor, am I supposed to?
Yeah,
Okay,
you've
thank
got
you.
it, you've got it for a while.
All right, I'll try to speed through here.
Could you repeat the question?
Oh, all right. When it has the word capital outlay, would you explain that to us and for the taxpayers,
It
please?
comes out of the capital proceeds of the city.
Mhm.
Those are items that have value over a long period of time.
Okay,
It's just not an expenditure like an air filter or something that's used up right away. It has value over multiple years.
oh, okay, like for instance, machinery or that type of thing?
Correct.
All right, okay, thank you. Let's go over here to the expo. I didn't think that we were using it, so,
What page are we on?
oh, I'm sorry, page 8. So we had some expenditures, is that because of utilities, phone and internet?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Let's see. Let's go over here, thank you, I'll try to go through here. I just saw a few things that I just wanted clarity on, not only for myself, but for the citizens. Let's go over here to page 10. When we talk about community development block grants, that is money that has to stay in the budget specifically for that use only, is that correct? Or
That's
is it
correct.
something?
Yes, those are grants from the state.
All right, and they can only be used for that particular thing, even though we're in this crisis, this is allocated for, on page 10, for a splash pad.
Yes.
So that means at an appointed time, that splash pad has to be constructed.
That's correct.
Okay.
That is all the parts associated with that splash pad.
Okay. All right, let's look at page 11. It talks about the Sunrise construction, and I know this has $60,000 plus. So that's for a sewer plant project?
No, sewer pipe project.
Oh, it has sewer plant, I'm sorry, it says sewer project, so that's what that's for. All right, thank you, moving right along here. Thank you so much for your time. Let's go to page 13 real quickly. And I think it's on another item, but this workers' compensation, was this for a person that has been furloughed or early retired, or is this person still gainfully employed?
It's not for a person.
It's not.
It is a monthly fee for them to administer our workman's comp claims.
Okay, and that's for this particular, all right, and when it has third-party, AWC admin, what does that mean?
Third party is the workman's comp carrier
Okay,
that administers all the claims for the city.
so that's the name of the company?
No, the third party is
Oh, okay, I know.
it's a company outside the city.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, got you. Very good. All right, let's go to page 15 quickly. I know that stormwater will be a subject that's going to be talked about later, but it said that this particular person finished the Second Street job on April the 3rd of
Right.
2020. So why is it reported in this? Because it didn't get in on time for it to be
Because
on?
we don't pay it until after it's been finished
Okay,
and the work's been done, and then we put the claim in to be paid.
all right. Should the person that wrote this, should he or she have an initial so we would know who did this, who wrote this in?
We could certainly do that, yes.
I think that would be wise, so if we needed to ask them something later, we would at least know where to find them. All right, page 16, I guess the same thing would apply for this project that cost $8,900, and he finished the KTC meter
Yes.
on the 7th, we didn't get in on time. All right, now, let's go to page 17. This is from the hospital, the Cancer Center Fund. It looks like they received,
Could I ask anyone that's calling in or on the line to mute their phone, please?
thank you, Councilwoman Harrison again. It shows on here the sales tax was $38,580.11. But then right here it says report grand total, $555,896.38. Was that a mistake?
It is not. If you go back and add up each one of the departments,
Okay,
go back to the Expo, Workman's Comp, all the CDBG projects, all of the general fund, all of the MPWA, all of these bills come to 500.
why would that be under the Cancer Center?
It's just the total for the report.
Well, do you think there ought to be something put here so that we would know that would be the total of all those departments, or people just automatically know that? I didn't know
It
it.
says report grand total.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so pursuant to page 19, and everyone, I'm not doing this to try to make an issue of anything. I'm just trying to find out where we are for our sakes, for the sake of the city manager and the taxpayer. So this is the reason that I'm doing this, okay? I want to make that clear.
You don't have to apologize for asking questions.
Well, I think I need to explain it at least. All right, let's go over here. Where it has the amount under tourism expense, it has $1,623.55. The annual budget is $50,000, and then it has over here this minus. But looking at what was spent, it was over $7,000. Should that be on here, or did I see something that I missed?
Let me go back.
It is list on the following page under fund number 27.
Well, without having a calculator in front of me, it looks like the $1,600 is made up of tourism expense Italian for tourism of $67.79. Oakland gift shop patches and stickers, $987.50. Oakland gift shop cinnamon toothpicks, $102.12. Shop novelty merchandise of $316.44. And it looks like the rest of it is made up of drinking cups of some sort for $149.70. So that's what would have been charged to that account number. Somewhere else, the $1,856, along with the $573.16 and the $37.21 would be in one of these other accounts. And right offhand, I don't know which accounts those are.
Okay, well, that total for those purchases came to $7,132.76.
Right, we already talked about that. The part of that was for Chaddock Park. Okay, so if we go back and we look for the $37.21, these things are terrible.
Small writing. But we see that listed on here, capital outlay for Chaddock bathrooms was $573.16. And the rest of this was not part of that. But my question is, and maybe I didn't state it correctly, if you look at page 7, and then you look over here at page 18, was it 18? Or maybe it was not 18. I turned it shows $1,623.55
Under what?
under tourism.
On which
Look at page 19.
Yeah, 1623.55.
But it had 7,000 something on this other, on page 7.
Councilwoman, what I'm trying to explain to you is
Yes.
under tourism, there's probably 20 different accounts. Okay, so 16 out of the $7,773.71,
Okay,
$1,623.55 was charged to this account, 27-5655-214.
okay,
Now, I don't know, without going back to the paperwork, where those other numbers are in these 2 pages.
okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
If you look at the total on page 19, $555,896.38.
I saw that.
If you go back, that ties to the grand total on page 17 of $555,896.38. So if you add
I
up
saw
those
it.
2 pages, that's how all of those funds were allocated and how all those bills were paid.
Okay. All right, and then the other question is, who has access to these security cards? Do you have purchase orders and security cards that people just say, I need to go make a purchase, they come get a card, go out and
No,
shop?
they fill out a form and finance and myself authorize those purchases.
Is there a balance or an amount that they have to, they can't go over, like 250 or something without?
No, once we authorize that amount through finance and also through my office, then they can spend up to that expenditure. They normally know how much they're gonna spend if they're going to Lowe's or going somewhere to purchase some item. So they'll put on that sheet, estimated expenditures, $250.
Okay,
And we're approving anything up to that $250 for the items that are specified on that sheet.
oh, okay, and this is per day?
No, this is just when somebody needs.
Oh, once a month, okay, no, I meant per purchase. In other words, if I came to you and I said, I need the
per
card,
purchase.
and I spent $250 today, I could come back and get the card and spend $250 tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, all right, and then, so do you have purchase orders too, or is that a different thing? And then
We do, and unless it's an emergency situation, that's the only time we issue the cards to be used, is because it's something that we have to have right now, and we may not have an account with that organization.
Oh, I see.
If we have an account with them, which we have hundreds of accounts all over town, we just issue POs.
Oh, okay. And how many banks do we owe loans to? Do you have an idea?
How many banks do we? You mean for vehicles and things?
For anything, just how many, indebtedness to approximately 4 banks, 5 banks? I'm not asking the amount.
We have indebtedness with Bank First here in the town, which was about $800,000 for the purchases you guys authorized about 4 or 5 months ago. We have loans with First National Bank. I don't believe we have any other loans with any other banks other than those two.
Okay, all right. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Are there any other questions on item C? Councilwoman Harrison, since you pulled these out, are you good with voting all 3 of them together, or do you want to vote them individually?
Oh, whatever we have time for.
Okay, then we'll vote them all together. So you're up again on item D.
All right, D. All right, let's see. Oh, this is about the letter of engagement to Crawford and Associates.
Yes.
Could we talk about that real short, quickly? I did look it up, and they did have a five-star rating, but that was only with 1 review. They are not in the top 10 accounting departments or accounting businesses in Oklahoma City. I was concerned about a few things on here, and this doesn't have anything to do with anybody selecting this particular company, so I don't want that misunderstood. I'm trying to look out for. I'm trying to see what would be in our best interest as we go through this future audit. And how long have we had business with this particular company?
Ever since I've been here,
And how long is that?
11 years.
11 years, okay. All right, so let's go over here to, put it marked off. All right, page 2, under D, as in dog. We're going to go down to this paragraph that starts with our engagement.
On page 2,
Yes, 2 at the bottom. Let me see if that's where it is. Maybe that's not it.
I don't see where it says our
Oh,
engagement.
see the page at the
Oh,
very
okay,
bottom?
right here.
Yeah, at the bottom. All right. One of my concerns on here, it says, we're not required to and will not verify the accuracy or the completeness of the information you provide to us for the engagement or otherwise gather evidence for the purpose of expressing an opinion or conclusion. Accordingly, we will not express an opinion or a conclusion or provide any assurance on the financial statements. So it doesn't sound like they're just gonna be looking at things. If they see a comma missing, if they see a 0 missing, they're not gonna say anything. They're just going to help us out, they're just going to,
No, that's not correct.
so tell us about that, please.
They take our financial statements and prepare them for the auditors, and the auditors are the ones that make all the assurances, opinions, all those type of things. All they're doing is summarizing our work throughout the 12-month period and then sending that on to the auditors.
Okay. All right. Page 3. Let's look over here. The first paragraph, it says the financial statements. The financial statements will not be accompanied by a report. However, you agree that the financial statements will clearly indicate that no assurance is provided for them.
Here again, they are preparing those for the auditors, and the auditors give the financial assurances.
All right. Moving right down to where, under the title, Other Requested Available Services, Crawford and Associates is not obligated to, but may report otherwise communicate to management any recommendations it determines necessary resulting from the professional services provided. Want me to read the next paragraph?
If it's
All right.
pertinent, absolutely.
All right, okay. Management and the governing body, which that would be us, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Will be responsible for establishing the scope of our other professional services to be provided and for providing the necessary resources allocated to the work. Such responsibility includes determining the nature, scope, and extent of the services to be performed, providing sufficient appropriation for the estimated cost of these services, providing overall direction and oversight for each service, and for reviewing and accepting the results of the work.
Correct. You will be responsible for looking over that work and its summary. And also, you are the ones that approve the financial statements that are done annually for the city
All right.
and the financial audit.
All right. Fees and costs, the bottom of page 3. So, looks like they get paid quite well for the work that they do. So, I think I don't need to go into that. So, that was my questions on that particular thing. Moving right along, we are at,
Hold on, I gotta let anybody else.
oh, I'm sorry.
Are there any other questions on item D? Now go ahead and go to F then.
Okay, we're at F. All right. So, looks like you have a nice elite group of gentlemen to help us out. So exactly what are the responsibilities of the, of this, let's see, this is the Airport Advisory Board? There's supposed to be 9 people, correct?
I believe so, yes.
All right. And,
What do we have on here? There's actually still one opening.
all right. Oh, I'm sorry, we're under F as in Frank.
Yeah.
So, exactly what are they don't receive a budget, correct?
They do not.
They just give information about the airport, sites and buildings, that type of thing?
Recommendations.
All right, and
Yes.
you're on that too, right?
I am,
Okay,
yes.
all right. So, that's what I was wondering, and do we have any drones?
We do here at the city, yes,
Okay.
not out at the not out at the airport.
Okay, all right, that's it, thank you so much.
Okay, just to clarify why there are so many names under item F, that board doesn't meet that often.
I read that.
And in fact, everybody's terms had expired, so the chairman, Mr. Otis, contacted me and told me that, and I asked him if they were interested in continuing on the board, and they were, so they're reappointments other than, the one that's under item G.
For 2 years, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions on item F? Okay. I would take a motion and a second to approve items C, D, and F. Motion, Councilman Smith. I will second. Any further discussion? Corr, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Harrison?
No,
Pritchard?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes, and the motion carries. We are now on to a public hearing. All persons interested in any ordinance listed under scheduled business shall have an opportunity to be heard in accordance with Article 2, Section 212B of the city charter. We have 3 tonight. The first is an ordinance amending the employee retirement system defined contribution plan for the city of McAlester, Oklahoma, providing for retirement benefits for eligible employees of the city of McAlester, Oklahoma, providing for vesting schedules, providing for repealer, severability, and declaring an emergency. The second is an ordinance of the city of McAlester temporarily reducing certain fees authorized in Chapter 106, Utilities, Article 5, Stormwater Utility Program, Division 1, generally the McAlester City Code, amending Chapter 48, fees for Chapter 106, Utilities, Article 5, Stormwater Utility Program, Division 1, generally temporarily repealing all conflicting ordinances and providing for severability and declaring an emergency. The third is an ordinance of the city of McAlester temporarily suspending certain fees authorized in Chapter 106, Utilities, Article 5, Stormwater Utility Program, Division 1, generally the McAlester City Code, amending Chapter 48, fees for Chapter 106, Utilities, Article 5, Stormwater Utility Program, Division 1, generally temporarily repealing all conflicting ordinances and providing for severability and declaring an emergency. I would take a motion in a second to open public hearings. Motion, Councilman Smith. I will second. Is there any discussion? Corr, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Harrison?
yes,
Yes.
Pritchard?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes, so we are now in public hearing. If anyone would like to address us under the first one, please approach or call. Seeing no one, we will move to the second. Same approach or call. Seeing no one, we will move to the third. Same. Seeing no one, I would take a motion in a second to close public hearings. Motion, Councilman Smith. I will second. Any discussion? Corr, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Somebody's beeping.
I'm trying to add another mic for it.
Councilman Cox,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. Whoever is on there that doesn't have their phone muted, could you please try to mute it and then just unmute when it's time to talk? We're going to move to scheduled business, and because we have a number of people here that would like to speak on it, and we do have the storms coming in, and some of them, we have some that need to be back and taking care of that. I'm going to move item 6 to the beginning, and that is discussion and possible action on the local modification of Governor Stitt's guidelines for reopening the economy. And I want to start by pointing out that nothing has changed about COVID-19. It's still as contagious as it was prior to reopening. It's still as deadly. Approximately 6% of Oklahomans who have tested positive have died. There is no vaccine, nor is one even close. So how does coronavirus spread? The coronavirus is thought to spread mainly from person to person. This can happen between people who are in close contact with one another. Droplets are produced when an infected person coughs or sneezes, may land in the mouths or noses of people nearby, or possibly be inhaled into their lungs. A person infected with coronavirus, even with no symptoms, may emit aerosols when they talk or breathe. Aerosols are infectious viral particles that can float or drift through the air for up to 3 hours. Another person can breathe in these aerosols and become infected with the coronavirus. This is why everyone should cover their nose and mouth when they go out in public. Coronavirus can also spread through contact with infected surfaces or objects. For example, a person can get COVID-19 by touching a surface or object that has the virus on it and then touching their own mouth, nose, or possibly their eyes. So what have we done so far? We did flattening the curve. And the idea behind this was to keep the healthcare system from becoming overwhelmed with patients. And this has worked well. Hospitals are able to handle the number of cases occurring. However, flattening the curve does not prevent people from becoming infected. It spreads that number over a longer period of time. As stated earlier, there's no cure or vaccine at this time, and flattening the curve only affects the number of people that get sick at the same time. So knowing that nothing has changed concerning COVID-19 other than we spread the disease rate over a longer period of time, what should our next step be, especially since the governor has chosen to reopen business? It's my belief that we have the responsibility to lessen the risk of infection to the extent possible. Since the rest of the state is reopening, we have no choice but to follow suit. If not, people would be traveling to other cities for merchandise and services, and this would actually cause more people to come in contact with the disease by increasing interaction through contact with a bigger circle of people. There are a number of recommendations for businesses to use when reopening. There are a lot of good ideas in these programs. However, I feel we need to take some of these recommendations farther and make them mandatory, not only for the business but also for the customers. It makes no sense for only half of an interaction to take precautions. What we have currently protect the customer from the employee. We also need to protect the employee from the customer. Therefore, I propose we enact the following requirements during this pandemic, and this will be in the form of a motion. Continue to follow guidelines concerning social distancing and sanitation and disinfection as given in the governor's reopening plan hours. In addition to those guidelines, we require anyone, employees and customers entering a reopening business, have their temperature checked by infrared touchless thermometer. Anyone with a temperature of 100 degrees or higher will not be allowed access. 3, anyone entering a business will be required to wear a mask or other type of barrier covering both their mouth and nose. They will be required to keep the barrier in place while in the business. Exceptions for not wearing a facial barrier while inside will be made for instances such as dining, cutting hair when needed to complete the cut, and other special situations particular to said business. This clause will not permit people to forego wearing the barrier in normal circumstances. Inconvenience will not be a viable excuse for failure to wear the barrier. Hand sanitizer of at least 60% alcohol be available to both employees and customers when paying for merchandise or service. Nothing in this proposal is intended to replace the hours program. The hours plan. The requirements will be in addition to the hours plan. Items 1, 3, and 4 would be implemented immediately. Item 2, while encouraged to begin as soon as possible, would take effect May 3rd, 2020. Failure to comply with these items will result in a warning for the first infraction. Further infractions will require a show of cause action between the City of McAlester, Director of Community Development, and the business owner to avoid revocation of the business license. So that is a motion. Is there a second? Seeing none, we will move on. What? Was that did somebody just second? No. Okay, then in that case, we will move on to, we have a number of people that have signed up to speak. I'm just going to go top to bottom, and Dr. John Tedesco first.
Name and address?
Yes.
John Tedesco, 19 Colonial Circle, 74501. I just wanted to talk very briefly about reopening and give a little bit of a medical opinion. This is just a concerned citizen who's talked to a couple docs, that's all. First of all, thank you to the mayor, the city council, the health department, law enforcement, first responders, and the community for supporting us, the healthcare workers, in doing your part to respect CDC's recommendation and help flatten the curve. Overall, I think our community has done a commendable job. At the hospital, we have increased our capacity at the hospital substantially so that even if we do see a modest surge, we should be able to handle and help care for the patients. I want to say a special thank you to David Keith and the hospital administrators. They've done a tremendous job preparing for the threat. You guys should all know what an impressive group you guys have at that hospital. I've got a long quote here from Timothy Moser, who's the president of the OOA, and I'll just summarize by saying it starts with, "We have grave concerns," and it mentions that June 8th is currently the safe Oklahoma reopening date. So I think his point is just everybody be very cautious. Scientists and doctors recommend pumping the brakes, but it sounds like the state's going to reopen regardless. So I urge you to reevaluate often, and if we do start getting overwhelmed, consider changing our policy. So all that said, there's not enough evidence for us to scientifically know the correct way to go or what to do next. Just want to make a couple of recommendations as we consider reopening commerce. Number one, we all need to remember that data indicate McAlester is still on the upswing and has not yet peaked. This week we had 16% positive tests. Last week we had 11. We have 5 patients in the hospital and 2 are in the ICU at our little hospital. So the recommendation is that the practice of social distancing of at least 6 feet, mask wearing, and hand hygiene continue. Places where physical closeness is unavoidable, such as the insides of bars, small restaurants, or schools, remain closed. All areas, inside or out, take care to honor the social distancing guidelines. At-risk individuals, including the elderly or those with comorbidities, continue to stay home. And most importantly, the public needs to be educated, maybe radio ads, billboards, signs on the doors of the businesses. There's a 918 pledge program I read about today that we should consider adopting. It has, we as a business pledge to wipe down things and do these safety measures. And
We have someone that's going to be doing a presentation.
Wonderful, excellent. And then I brought the CDC has a 17-page guideline. You guys may have already read it, but I brought a copy in case you want it. And it's got a rundown of a few broad categories of businesses and how to reopen them safely.
Councilman Smith?
You mentioned the number of positive testing.
Yes,
16%.
that's correct. 16%.
How many people are being tested?
We tested
Don't
64.
the people that go to be tested that already think they have?
Not always. We're currently allowing anybody to be tested.
How many tests have you?
We did. We've done around 330 total are positive, roughly. It's like 296 and 30. And then this past week, we did 64 and 10 were positive.
So at the beginning of the 300, somewhat, how many were positive?
Overall, all the tests that we've done, 30 are positive, 10%.
I can
But
tell
like you said, we were testing just static individuals until recently.
in Oklahoma, 1.3% of the population has been tested.
Right.
I'm happy to answer.
Mayor,
any
this is
questions.
Councilman
Testing
Pritchard.
has been limited so far, right?
I didn't hear you.
The testing has been pretty limited so far.
Yeah, like I said, 1.3% of the population, so,
Oh,
Yeah.
that was how many tested?
yeah, 50,000 out of nearly 4 million.
I think Zach had a question.
Yeah, who was it that had the question on the?
Yes, Councilman Pritchard.
Go ahead.
Dr. Tedesco, what did you say the current requirements are for getting a test at the hospital?
Currently, anybody that's concerned can get a test. You just contact your doctor and get a prescription for either the antibody test, or you can go to some of the drive-up testing sites. The health department has one, and we were running one on the weekends, but I think we're gonna temporarily postpone that one, so you'd have to go to the ER to get a test right now.
The Choctaw Nation is providing them as well, and they are not requiring a CDIB card.
Great.
Oh, crap.
Did you have your hand up, Councilwoman Harrison?
Yes, this is Councilwoman Harrison. Thank you so much for coming and the service that you've rendered at the hospital. Have you tested any children? Have any children?
We
been-
have tested a number of children. The positivity is low. I don't remember how many per county, but I know in the state there've only been a handful, like 5 or 6.
Oh, okay. And I read where the National Guard came and they decontaminated one of the nursing homes where sadly, one of the residents passed away. Pittsburgh County showed there were two deaths, correct?
That's right.
Is it okay to say what other town or community the other one was beside McAlester?
I don't recall.
You don't recall, okay. And now the doctors are back to doing elective surgeries?
Some.
and Some of them are?
That's right. There's a tiered approach. Of course, we've been doing emergency surgery, and now we're going to do semi-urgent surgery, things like slow-growing cancers like skin cancer and things like that.
Okay. And it's okay to ask this other question. Are you able to distinguish between somebody taking away of just regular flu with pneumonia and this COVID? Is there a distinction on their,
That is a
sad to say,
difficult-
on their death certificate or how it's coded in the
That is a difficult
computers?
distinction. As of now, whether it's eventually a heart attack or something else, if they're COVID positive, we're still attributing it to COVID.
All right, so let me get this straight. If a person passes away of a heart attack or a stroke,
It's not that simple.
well, I mean,
Right.
are they going to be listed as a COVID?
Well, so,
person?
some of the research is showing that COVID attacks vessels
Yes.
and the myocardium. So we actually think that those heart attacks and strokes could be related to the COVID infection.
So who determines what really happened? The physician or
Yes,
at the time of that
That's right.
person's demise?
right.
Oh, okay, thank you.
A very good example I was told on that is, let's say you have stage 4 lung cancer and you go get chemo, and on your drive home you get hit by a car. You were killed by a car accident. However, you were probably going to die from the lung cancer.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Blake Jennings.
Good evening, guys. My name is Blake Jennings, 308 Bluebird Lane, McAlester, 4501. I'm here just on behalf of probably a lot of churches in the community, just wanting to find out some clarity on both what the governor said as well as just the national CDC guidelines as far as the social distance goes. I know that the governor stated nursery was not to be in attendance, I think, for a little while, but what is the definition of nursery? And maybe we know that. Is it 0 to 24 months? I believe the state states that it is 0 to 24 months. And also the spacing or the social distance adults. How does all of that play into church church. I know that he said we can start resuming. Not that I don't think anybody's rushing to do so, but just trying to get some clarity on some of that.
The problem with that question is you're asking us to explain somebody else's reasoning. As far as what constitutes a nursery, my inclination would be that if the governor of the state is saying that nurseries shouldn't be closed and the state has a definition of a nursery, that's what it would be.
Okay.
Yeah, that, don't take that as legal advice. That's
No, that's
just
fine.
that's my interpretation.
I didn't even know I signed up to speak. I thought they had to sign in when we walked in here. So
No.
that's why we're just to get some clarity on some of those things.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and then I've read, and I'll tell you, if you go to okcommerce.gov, there's a lot of information on there, and it has it for specifics from churches to beauty shops to all of that, and it's pretty helpful and informative.
Perfect.
And from I think what I've read on the churches, and once again, this is going from memory, is every other pew and 6 feet apart in the pews that you're in. So, but double check that at okcommerce.gov.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Mark Hendon?
He answered
You
all
got
the
it?
questions.
Okay.
Mayor, I think I have that statement.
Well, while you're doing that, I'm gonna call Lisa Curry up.
Lisa Curry with the Pittsburgh County Health Department at 1400 East College Avenue. Sorry, I work in the district. So, in regards to businesses reopening, we working with a team, collaborative effort between the health department, EOC, and the city of McAlester to create some resources for businesses because this is new to everyone, and we are following the recommendations by the governor's Open Up and Recover Safely plan. So what we have done, you were referring to education earlier, so we have those resources. We are slowly making education and information videos on our health department websites and sharing those. It's a live video actually showing and demonstrating how businesses can set up and follow social distancing guidance that's listed in those recovery guidance plans. And so we've also accumulated some resources to distribute to businesses as well. Some of them, the recommendations such as the thermometers, or we have the screening questionnaires. And what we've done is in these videos for each sector right now, we've already posted for salon and nail salons yesterday. And then today we finished the instruction video for restaurants. And in the link there, you can also link directly to these resources. So we are working on distributing these to businesses as well as having the resources there. So if we cannot contact the business, they have these readily available 2 days as the videos that they can click on these. I wanted to be able to show you the video, but we have some technical difficulty with that in here. So the video actually has the link, tells them this is the guidance from the governor to reopen those businesses. So an example I brought with me is for the restaurants today in the video that we posted today. And so we've just compiled these kits in conjunction with those other partners I mentioned. And so we have, they may not have a tape measure. So this is just a kit for them to open up and they can open their business. Everything should be right there for them. So we've already cut the measurement for them so they can do the 6 feet of distancing. The instructional video also reminds them that that's person to person in the restaurant, not table to table. You've got to allow for that spacing and maybe skip a table. We've got the screening questionnaire already printed for them to screen customers, vendors, and employees. We've also got information printed that tells them how to clean and disinfect. Sometimes the challenge is finding disinfectant products, so we've included the recipe guidance on how to make that as well. Also reminding them how to properly use soap and water to wash their hands. Some people may not, wash for the full 20 seconds that is recommended. Also the alcohol-based hand sanitizer. I know right now that's kind of hard for some of us to find, so we've included not just how to use that, but also the recipe to make that as well if they cannot get their hands on that. Also, with a lot of businesses going to maybe require face coverings in their business or ask that and recommend that their employees or patrons use those. We've also included why we're in the CDC recommendation for why you should wear a face mask, how to properly wear it, and when social distancing measures cannot be maintained. There's also instructions in there to make yours. I personally can't sew a face mask, so there's also instructions to cut one out of a t-shirt that's easy and ready to go. As well as what you should know about COVID-19 to protect yourself and others. We always want to make sure the education is there as well. And then we've also created some signage just to remind them, because you know, we're human, we kind of get busy maybe eating your dinner if they're dining in and kind of forget that, oh yeah, I need to wash my hands before I do this. So we've actually created, so removing that tableware and other surfaces on the table such as salt and pepper shakers, other condiments that are multi-use menus, and maybe recommending and asking those businesses to maybe use paper menus. They could print their menu. These are placemats that actually have public health messaging on them to remind them to cough in their elbow, not in their hand. And wearing the face mask kind of tells the benefit of that again, just giving them reasons to dine responsibly if they are dining in. And then signage to hang throughout the business to remind them to wash their hands, social distance, and something as simple as not going into the facilities when overcrowding would happen or occur and social distancing couldn't be maintained. Also signage to limit capacity in waiting areas and dining rooms and restaurants. And we've also, if you've seen some of the social distancing signage, we've shared with some retailers throughout the community. If you've gone to some of the local retailers here, they have some social distancing such as this vinyl social distancing in their facility, showing people to maybe step back 6 feet from where you're paying. So that is included as well, and there are also multiple public health messages on those, and there's multiple designs. They can also print their own if we didn't get to them or they weren't there. So this would all be in a kit, as well as some caution tape. You have restaurants, for example, that cannot, you know, maybe like a fast food chain that can't physically remove their tables or chairs to maintain that social distancing. So some caution tape to put on there to let people know that table's not being used. And just an incomplete resource kit to help the restaurant get up and going. And we're doing this for every sector as well. I know he asked about places of worship. We will continue the education videos and posting them daily, hopefully to have all those up by Friday when everyone reopens.
Fantastic.
Good job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could, this was in conjunction with the city of McAlester, the Department of Health, McAlester Regional Health Center. All of these agencies pulled together to pull all of this information together to be able to put these kits together and get these out to these businesses that are getting ready to reopen. So this has just been an outstanding project that they've put together very quickly.
Great. Good. Any comments or questions from the council?
Oh, I had one quick question.
Go ahead.
This is Councilwoman Harrison. Are your other services now open at the health department besides the testing? And are you doing any other services that you did before this crisis?
Are you referring to clinic services?
Yes.
And we do have a limited amount of services. We are doing a lot of that by, which I believe my director may be on the line here, but we are doing a lot of that by, for example, WIC. We're doing that over the phone to certify WIC recipients.
Mm-hmm. So are you doing
Hi,
telesurgery?
Here she is.
Hi, this is Julie Montgomery. I'm the Regional Director for the Pittsburgh County Health Department. We do continue to have clinical services. We offer family planning and WIC daily, of course on an appointment basis, but we've also made sure to shift services over that those that can get over the phone for the safety of the clients as well as the staff. So we also continue to do vital records, but also through kind of like a telephone or online strategy. But we continue to provide all services, including early intervention and child guidance.
May I ask one more question?
Yes.
Councilwoman Harrison, do you also provide like the teleservices, you know, where people can look at you on, you know, is that what they're called when people see you on the screen or whatever? And do you provide that?
Oh, we do a little bit of telehealth. That can be done through and child guidance. The majority of things like family planning, when you're needing a first-time appointment, or WIC, when they're needing to be certified for a WIC appointment, we do that in-house.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anyone else Questions or comments? We do have a number of people here. I'm going to open it up if anybody in the audience has anything they would like to say before we move on. All right, not seeing anyone. We will move to agenda item number 1. Consider and act upon an ordinance amending the City of McAlester defined contribution retirement plan. Mr. Stasiak, this is going to be you, but just to be sure, because we haven't had much interaction here, would you go ahead and call the roll again? Right, make sure we have the people still online.
Councilman Pritchard,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Brown, Councilman Brown,
Yes. Did you hear?
Yeah.
yes.
Good.
Harrison,
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. Okay, Mr. Stasiak.
Mayor, members of the council, this is our
Mr.
defined.
Stasiak,
Yes,
Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
before you guys get started, could you speak a little closer into the mic? I apologize. It's a little hard to hear for us,
Okay.
or at least for me.
can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Mayor, members of the council, this is ordinance, an ordinance to amend our defined contribution plan for the city of McAlester, and this is for the vesting schedule associated with that. When we set this up in 2013, I don't think anybody realized that we would be having the amount of early retirements, furloughs, and just positions that were not being filled here at the city. That vesting schedule was set up over a 7-year period of time. We currently have employees that are either retiring, are retiring and taking advantage of the early retirement process. And the 7-year schedule does not allow them to be 100% vested. This is money that they have put in a retirement account for themselves each pay period. And it's also money that the city has set aside for them and has already been distributed to their account. So there would be no additional cost to the city in changing this vesting schedule from a 7-year vesting schedule to a 5-year vesting schedule. Mayor, council, staff recommends changing that vesting schedule from 7 years to 5 years and honoring those retirees that are currently leaving the city.
Is there any questions or comments?
Somebody have it.
Councilwoman Harrison?
Yes, thank you for putting this up. It came so quickly. I've got a quick question. The benefit that they would have had, I'm saying the city employees would have had at 7 years, they're now getting it at 5 years, is that correct?
They would be, that is correct. They would be 100% vested at 5 years instead of 100% vested at 7 years.
Oh, all right. Could we do a couple of quick things here that kind of caught my attention? In this section here, we're item 1. Let's see, I think it was on Exhibit A, page 2. It's at the bottom. I was kind of concerned about number 4, where it says definition of compensation. It has an X there for severance pay and also accrued vacation or sick leave paid upon termination of employment and moving expenses. So could you tell us, what does that mean?
Well, it says compensation shall exclude the items
Oh, right,
listed
exclude,
below.
I forgot to read that. So they
So-
won't get severance pay and they won't get vacation? Or
No, we would not pay the pension benefit on severance pay.
You would not pay, say it again, please.
We would not pay the pension benefit on severance pay.
On severance pay, okay.
So let's say that you guys terminated my employment today, and in my contract I have X amount of dollars of severance pay. You would be responsible to pay me my severance pay, but you would not be responsible to pay my contribution to my defined contribution plan, my pension plan.
Just only the portion that the city put in, but not the portion that you put in as a
No, there
sponsor?
would be nothing.
Oh, there would be nothing?
Yes.
All right.
It works like this. Your benefit is determined by your income.
Right.
Okay, so what this is severance pay, and the vacation pay is not counted as part of that income.
It's
Is
not
that
counted.
correct, Mr. Stasio?
That is correct, yes, Mayor.
I just want to make sure that people that are leaving are getting everything that they're supposed to have, that nobody's going to be lacking.
They still get the vacation and the sick leave.
Okay, that's what I was concerned. I thought
But
when it said-
it just isn't counted as, because your benefit is a percentage of what you made.
Okay.
As what, you know, you say you made $100.
Okay.
And you had $10 worth of vacation. Your percentages of that $100, not of the 110, but you still get paid for the 10.
Oh, okay, you can see where my concern was,
Yeah.
because it had the word exclude. And also over here on page, the next page over, Exhibit A, page 3. Go down here to number 8. Forfeitures of employee contributions attributable to the fixed option or variable option under section 5 hereof, and then it has an X, shall reduce the employer contribution under such option. Could you tell us what that means, please?
Sure, under a vesting schedule, let's say that, let's use the 5-year vesting schedule.
All right,
If the city would put in their contribution and the employee would put in their contribution, but after 1 year of service, you're only 20% vested. So the employee would only get 20% of the money.
okay.
The rest of it has already been put into an account. That's called forfeitures. Those forfeitures would come back to the city.
Oh, that 80%?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. And look at number 9, service for workers' compensation period, and it has on here, X shall be credited with service for such period for purposes of vesting only and not purposes of allocation of employer contributions. So could you tell us about that, please?
That's correct. When they're on workers' comp, they're not on the city's payroll. They're being paid by our third-party administrator. So they're actually considered employees of the city. Okay, but they're not, so they would be, that time would be counted towards their vesting. There would not be a break in the service because they went to workers' comp.
Oh, all right. So if a person, I don't know if you had any employees like that. Did you have any employees that did retire or get furloughed that are on workers' compensation?
No, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good news. All right. Let me see if I have another.
Not to my knowledge.
Thank you for.
Not to my knowledge.
Oh, not to your knowledge. All right. Let's go over here to page 5. Direct transfer to other retirement.
I'm sorry, which one are you on?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Page 5?
Yes. Exhibit A as in apple and page 5. Let's see here. We could start off at 11. Participant loans. Participant loans shall not be offered. Do you even have loans for employees?
We do, yes.
And how does that work?
They're borrowing against their own funds.
Could you give us an example?
Say your account has $10,000 in it. And I
At the
belie-
time of your retirement or the time of leaving or
No,
whatever?
this is just in general.
In general, okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Say you have, I believe that the documents say you can borrow up to 50% of your account value. And that's considered to be a loan. You take a loan out against your pension. They give you the money, okay? And they charge you an interest rate, and that interest rate actually goes into your account also. So you're paying yourself interest, and you're paying the loan back. But you can't just take a distribution, you have to pay the loan back.
Okay, that's what that means.
So you're borrowing your own money.
Does this happen frequently?
I can tell you in the federal level that a lot of people will do it because there's also a clause in there that they can do it when they're buying a house.
Okay,
You know, so
would
if
they
you
need a
needed-
lump sum of
Yeah,
money
so
at
if you
one
needed
time?
a
Or for
down
medical
payment.
bills.
For medical bills,
Yeah.
okay, all right, that makes sense. And, let's see, I don't think I had, I think that answered it there, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Mayor, this is Councilman Pritchett, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So if we make this change, I apologize if this was said, but how many additional employees and how many dollars will this add to the retirement plan?
Okay, this is not part of our defined benefit program. This is our defined contribution program. A defined contribution program is a dollar amount that is actually put in everybody's account based on matches every pay period. So the money has already been allocated into their accounts. What we're talking about here is the vesting schedule, and there is no additional cost to the city. This is money that's already been paid out.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, I'd take a motion and a second to approve. Motion, Councilman Smith. I will second. Any further discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We will move on to agenda item number 2. Consider and act upon a
Mr. Mayor, this is Joe Irvin. The ordinance carries an emergency clause that needs to be acted on separately.
Okay, sorry, I didn't, mine's not listed on that. I take a motion and a second on the emergency motion, Councilman Smith. I will second. Any discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yeah, and the motion carries. Now we'll move to agenda item number 2. Consider and act upon a resolution to adopt the capital improvement program 2020, 2021, 2024, 2025. Mr. Stasiak.
Mayor, members of the council, this is the capital improvement program that we've been working on since February of this year. On March the 10th, the CIP presentation was made to the council. On March the 14th, we published it in the newspaper, meeting that requirement. On April the 14th, we had a public hearing here at a council meeting. And today we are asking that, we have gotten no other feedback on the capital improvement program. We are asking that the council approve
The capital improvement program. Are there any questions or comments?
Wow. Don't know where that came from.
Councilwoman Harrison? Yes.
This is Councilwoman Harrison. Mr. Stasiak, is it okay to address Mr. Stasiak? Mr. Stasiak, in light of us having this major budget crunch, were there any adjustments after, was just say after March the 25th pursuant to this summary, or was this put together before the crisis?
It was put together before the crisis, Councilwoman, and this is just a depiction of what the needs of the city are. It doesn't mean that we have funding for it. It just lets you guys know these are what we've identified as being needs going forward with the city.
So if I had to summarize it in my own words, it's like proposal, we need this amount of money in order for these services or these projects to be.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I would take a motion in a second. Motion, Councilman Smith. I will second. Any further discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We will move to agenda item number 3. Consider and act upon authorizing the purchase of a new cardboard baler from Seabury Products Incorporated of Hawkins, Michigan. Mr. Stasiak, once again.
Mayor, members of the council, this Baler was part of a grant opportunity that was identified by our grant writer. This was probably done about 4 months ago. We are in need of a new cardboard baler up at the recycling center, even though the center is currently closed. This went out for bids, and we are pleased to announce that we have been awarded been awarded this grant from the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality, and it covers the grant 100, or the cost of the baler 100%. So to no cost to the city of $11,070.
Are there any questions or comments?
I appreciate Mrs. Giacomo for putting this together and seeing that it was approved, so she gets a compliment to that. Was she the one that did that?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I would take a motion and a second to approve. Motion, Councilman Smith. I will second. Any further discussion? Corey, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. I have just some good news. I talked to a member of the Choctaw Nation today, and they are starting their recycling program back up any day now.
Excellent.
So
It's good news.
that, we may be able to follow suit and sometime soon, hopefully. We're on to agenda item number 4. Consider and act upon a temporary reduction or suspension of the stormwater service charge fee to last until June 30th, 2020 at 11:59 p.m. Mr. Stasiak or Vice Mayor Stevens?
It's me,
Okay, go ahead.
Vice Mayor Stevens. Sorry, you can't see me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm still adjusting. So basically my thought process in this is I know that we've discussed in multiple different ways on the council, ways that we can maybe help in the community through actively trying to provide loans or impact or feed people or do lots of different ways and angles. But I thought in this way, compared to some of the other councilmen's comments and things like that, that we believe that there's a lot of federal funds being flowing into these areas, and hopefully more continues for a lot of these businesses and local people here through stimulus or boosted unemployment and things like that. But I got to thinking about if we can't necessarily generate and do those things, maybe there's some things that we can actively do as a council to reduce cost and burden in our community. So what I've done here is I've proposed 2 things with an emergency on both. For you guys to review, and it was to either A, eliminate the stormwater fund for the rest of the year. That would allow us, if we did that, to allow capital to flow back to families, businesses, others in our community that operate and live here. Because I'm very into the thing that concerns me and worries me most with this, and beyond the health risk and things that we've already discussed multiple times and as well to this evening, is that what's it look like when we start to get through this? Because I really firmly believe that we're not through the full force of it yet, and we're just getting started. But how can we actively help the communities, the families here going forward and reducing that cost of burden so they're here long afterwards? Because these are the people that are pouring into our community and doing those things, but this is for everyone in the community, not just people that don't own businesses, but businesses as well. So it encompasses all of us. So we're eliminating it for the rest of the fiscal year until June 30th, and then the other one is reducing it to $2. So it allows both those to essentially going forward mitigate down the cost of bearing or really living in McAlester and then operating a business in McAlester as well. So with that, I'm strongly with this and talking it through because I believe it allows us to have some options to help people. This isn't doing it from now on. This is doing it for a short period of time. We've had a lot of these businesses shut down. So maybe allowing them, if they were able to obtain federal funds, allows them to retain a little bit more of that. If it's $4 extra a month, at least it's $4 that hopefully they'll go and spend with somebody else or they're allowed to save so they can buy groceries and do that. If it's a business that pays a large amount in stormwater fees, and if they're able to save that money, maybe they'll be able to continue to pay employees or maybe to be able to pay bills or pay rent going forward as well for a little bit longer here. So with that, I'll open it up if anybody has any comments or questions.
Any comments or questions? Councilwoman Harrison?
All right, this is
Yes.
Councilwoman Harrison. Thank you so much, Councilman Stevens. I know you have a lot of concerns about the water issues, and I appreciate that, and hopefully that'll be something that can move forward in the next few months. Pursuant to this, on the water bill, it has a spot there where you can, I think it's called neighbor sharing, maybe Mr. Stasiak could help us, on the water bill where you can donate an amount beyond your water bill. Did you know about that? And I think
Yes.
that might be something that we need to maybe promote a little bit more to, try to give a little bit more, maybe even $1 more than your own water bill would be something to help somebody that's having a difficult time. Is that something that you think could be done? Anyone, if that's okay with you, Mayor? That's something that we can do. Encourage people to donate a little bit beyond their own water bill.
Yeah, I'm sure that the city manager could have that information put out on Facebook and.
We could,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, because I did that myself the other day. I just added a little bit more money to my water bill like that. And also, is it okay to continue talking? I talked to a couple of banks because I am concerned, just like the rest of our small business, and they said that there are funds that are available, but people are going to have to apply ASAP to get any of these small business loans. And I asked one of the bankers, I said, well, can people make donations like a Good Samaritan donation? And they thought that was a welcome idea. In other words, if you have somebody that's well-resourced and they could just send you a check and you can put it in your account, instead of just sitting idly by and saying, oh, isn't that so sad that business is going down? Why don't you make a donation to that person, either through a check or, I guess meet them at the bank and put it in their account for them. But those are options that we can do, and we just called it a Good Samaritan Act. And I'll just say this real quickly. My little grandson was 10 years old. While he was visiting, I was telling him about the plight of our, community. And so he wrote a thank you card, and he took his little coins and all like that, put it in a little container, and asked me to take it to one of the restaurants in our ward.
Nice.
So these are things that if a child can do something like that, those of us, especially people that are well-resourced, I think these are some things that we need to give them an opportunity to be a Good Samaritan. Thank you.
Any, Councilman Smith?
This is not my normal thing that I would do, but I want to make a motion to reduce it to 0 until the end of June.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? I have a question to see if you guys would be willing to look at this. This stormwater fee, there's already a number of projects that have been identified, and there's a long list of plans to address this issue. Instead of reducing the fee, would you guys be willing to defer it for the rest of the year, and it can be paid out through the following year to get back up? And that way the stormwater fee isn't actually decreased, and projects have to be canceled, but it does allow the businesses or the individuals to retain the cash flow that they would have instead of paying it.
To have it deferred instead of totally eliminated to the end of June.
Yeah, Vice Mayor Stevens, were you speaking?
Yes, this is Vice Mayor Stevens. I wouldn't be willing to second it, that motion, and this would be the only reason. Although I don't think that's a bad idea, keeping in mind the projects that we have. I'm hoping by doing a small thing like this, maybe this would really allow them to actually retain more of that capital, and then going forward, we can reassess after the beginning of the new fiscal year. So I don't think that's a bad idea, Mr. Mayor, but what I'm trying to accomplish, or at least in my vision, I'm trying to accomplish with this, is realistically allowing them to retain those dollars instead of deferring it out, because I'm very fearful after we continue to open, if there's a continuing cascading effect in opening and closing and things like that, kind of like what you mentioned earlier on the agenda item. And I don't disagree with a lot of your points there, that then it could become even more burdensome if they're trying to pay extra to maintain back bills, as probably a lot of people and families will have. So that's my reasoning behind that.
Okay. Any other?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
this is Councilman Collins.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm not going to support the deferment. I think it's going to be too burdensome. These businesses are going to have loans to repay. They're going to have debt that has been pushed out. And by deferring it, I think we're just going to make a bad situation worse. I think we just need to forego it until the end of June.
Anyone else? Yeah, Councilwoman Harrison?
They're going to have to bring a little bit more, this is Councilwoman Harrison, my apology, a little bit more clarity to exactly what we need to do. But would you explain, Mayor, if you have a moment, about suspension? Because there's some people that think suspension means that you don't ever have to pay it. So for the viewing audience, could you explain the difference between the suspension and the deferment, so that our listeners
The suspension would mean that you would not be charged that for the final 2 months of the fiscal year, and you would not be required to pay it back.
Okay, that's what, okay,
Yeah.
and that's on the suspension.
Yes.
Okay, and the deferred?
Deferment, you would have an accrued cost. You wouldn't have to pay it for the final 2 months, but through the next 12 months, you would have to make that up. I looked at it similar to what we're doing, with water bills. We're not shutting
Right.
anybody's water off.
Right.
But they still owe that money. They just
Right.
have to pay it at some point in the future.
No, it's just suspended for a couple of months. Okay. All
Yeah.
right, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
I would like to make a motion that
Well,
we
hold
suspend
on.
the.
Hold on for
Go
just
ahead.
1 second, because I got to get some clarity from Joe, because we had a motion and a second, and then we had the motion withdrawn, but not the second withdrawn. So I gotta get some clarity from Joe as to how we proceed.
Well, you had a motion and a second, and then you had the motion withdrawn, and so you don't have any actions pending. Mr. Stevens is clear to is okay to make his motion.
Okay. Okay.
I would say that's not true. I withdrew my first motion, but made a second motion.
Yes,
And
that's
it was second.
Oh, that's true. That is true. You need to call for a second on the motion that Mr. Smith made,
okay.
and then the councilman can make a subsequent motion even if another second is made, but you call the first motion first. You need to call for a second for Mr. Smith's motion.
Okay. Well, obviously, since I brought it up, I will second it. Okay. So now where are we at, Joe?
Did you get a second on Mr. Smith's motion?
Yes.
Only to suspend enforcement until after the year?
Okay. So do I need two motions from Mr. Smith? One to withdraw
No.
his. Okay.
Did you get a second from Mr. Smith's second motion?
Got a second on Mr. Smith's motion to defer.
Okay. You're free to call the roll on that motion. Now, Mr. Stevens has made a motion. You can ask for a second on that motion before you call the first question, but you need to call the first question first.
Okay. Okay. So is there a second on, Vice Mayor Stevens, will you restate your motion, please?
My motion is to suspend the stormwater fee for the rest of the fiscal year.
Okay. Is there a
This
second?
is Councilman Hawkins, I second.
Okay. Now, is there any further discussion on the first motion? Is there any further, with the motion to defer? And is there any further?
Mayor, this is Councilman Pritchard.
Yes, go ahead.
I have I guess a question for City Manager. How would the mechanism, can we easily handle this deferment idea?
To
Just the administration of it.
Are you talking about suspension or deferral?
Well, really both, but deferral. Can you answer the question for both of them?
Yeah, we can just turn that item off on the utility bills, and it won't show up on the utility bills when the bills go out.
But I mean, even if we turn it off, we will still have a system to track the amount per customer.
I guess I don't understand the question.
Well, maybe I don't understand. The fee is the fee the same amount for every? The fee's not dependent on usage, is it? Isn't it? It's based on size of the customer or something like that.
Yeah, it's fixed. It's a fixed cost.
But isn't
Yeah,
it
okay.
based on impermeable area
It is.
that the owner has?
Yeah, so it doesn't change
Yeah,
month to
that's right.
month.
Okay. I've answered my question.
Okay, so, once again, are there any questions or comments on the motion to defer?
No.
Councilwoman Harrison?
Could it just be restated again, because I'm a little bit lost in some of it? Would you mind before we do our vote? Thank you.
Would you go restate your
All
motion?
right, my motion, Maureen, is to defer the payment of that fee for the next, well, until the end of June. And then, as the mayor stated, we could recoup that, just like we're, not shutting anybody's water off right now, but eventually they'll have to pay that over the next fiscal year. So that amount that's deferred on this fee, which is not very much, what is that?
It's $425 for a resident.
$425 per month, but then that deferment would be in operation until the end of June, but then over the next fiscal year, they would pay back that small amount of money, just like somebody that had a water bill deferred would pay back theirs over a period of 12 months.
And suspension means that.
Wouldn't
there's
have to
2 or 3
pay it
months.
back.
They wouldn't have to pay it back, okay.
Okay, so one more time, any further questions on the deferral?
But the important thing to me, this Weldon,
Yeah.
about the deferral, is the point you made. We've got all these projects hanging fire right now that depend on that money to get them done. So it would be, appropriate to me to defer it so people don't have to pay it right now. But then eventually the money comes in so that we can fund those projects that are in the queue.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Councilman Pritchard was talking before me.
Yep. Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
City Manager, do we have projects that are in progress that are relying on the remaining 3 months or 2 months of stormwater fees?
Councilman, what we would do is we would suspend those projects for a period of time. To answer your question, yes, we do. We have $21 million worth of stormwater projects. Are those all ready to go? Absolutely not. The next big project coming up is a collapsed stormwater pipe project on Sawyer Way that's estimated to be about $250,000. We've got the money for that. We have projects lined up. It's just a matter of getting them engineered and getting them out for bid. So this
Right.
would
Well,
this,
let me be more precise. Can I be more precise in my question? Because I understand we have a lot of projects, millions of dollars. But are there any projects that are currently underway? And what I mean by underway is contracts that we've approved work for that are relying on the stormwater money from the last 2 months of the year.
no.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor Stevens?
Yeah, just one thing while I'm sitting here thinking about the deferment proposal. So that's what we're about to vote on, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I would encourage us to think about the deferment, that there could be people possibly that won't be there to continue to pay their water bills and businesses if we don't do some things to manage that. So I would hate for us to continue to pursue projects and engineer them on the hopes that we'll get this deferment for over the next 12 months. So that's my last point, and I'm ready to vote.
Okay. Anyone else, any questions or comments on the deferment? Okay. In that case,
Mayor, this is Councilman Pritchard. I want to say one last thing,
okay.
if I can.
Yes.
So I think the deferment is problematic for a few reasons, but this one particularly. So if we defer everyone automatically, so in the next 2 months we're going to get no bills or not no bill, but no stormwater bill on your water bill, no stormwater fee on your water bill, and then when that gets turned back on in July, all the customers are going to have a relatively large or larger than expected line item on their water bill. And so, if we do this, we're going to, potentially create a burden on people in July or August whenever they get that new bill with the deferred month, and they may not even know about it. So if we do this, I think it would be advisable for us to be as out there as possible, letting people know that, hey, we've taken this off your bill. I think that's going to be too clunky. I think it makes more sense to just go ahead and not assess this fee for the remaining months of this fiscal year. Thank you.
Councilman Smith?
Okay, the stormwater fee for a resident is now at $4.25, right? So we're talking months. That's $8.50 spread over a 12-month period. That's less than $1 a month that would be added to their regular water bill. So I don't think that's going to hurt a lot of people. Now, obviously, businesses that have huge parking lots, they pay more, but they're still spread over a 12-month period.
Councilwoman Harrison?
So, to get clarity on this, was somebody else? This is Councilwoman Harrison. So on the deferral, when we're voting, yes means you're for it, or no means you're for, which way?
Yes means you are voting to defer the stormwater
Yes means
fee.
you're voting to defer.
Yes.
All right. And then when we come to the suspension,
Yes would mean you would be voting for the suspension.
yes would mean, okay, all right. Thank you.
You're welcome. And one thing also about, with deferring it and having the whole next year to pay it, it doesn't necessarily have to even start the payback on January 1st. We could start that, July 1st. We could start it, 6 months in, so depending on what the economic conditions are at that time. So it gives people 14 months to make up what they would be deferring for 2 months. So there is plenty. I mean, there shouldn't be a big burden on anyone to pay it back. Like I said, that doesn't necessarily have to be in July. It can always be in May of 2021.
Oh, one other
Yes.
thing. If we've suspended their water, and we use that word, it seems to me like this would go along with that. I think people would be less confused if everything was suspended.
Yeah, but we'd go broke.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, you're just talking about for 2 months though, right?
Yeah. That's
Oh.
1/6 of the year.
Okay, so you've said, all right, let's refresh our memory, if you don't mind, Mayor, on the suspension of the water.
There isn't a suspension of the water. There
I mean, of the
there's-
water bill.
Yeah, there is no suspension of the water bill.
Okay,
There's
people,
there is, if they don't pay their bill, they're not getting turned off. They still
okay,
owe
that's-
that money.
right.
And that money will have to be paid at some point in the future.
Okay,
And they continue to accrue, with the water they use. They're not being charged late fees or anything on it.
Okay.
But
So-
they still have to pay that bill.
okay, that's the clarity on it, because, all right, okay. So people still need to pay their bill, but
Correct.
it won't be turned off if they can't pay it at the time it's due.
Correct.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure I understood
So,
that. Thank you.
Mayor, it's sort of like a deferment
It's exactly
for
that.
the water bill
Yes.
Uh-huh.
as it would be for this stormwater fee.
Oh my gosh.
All right, one more time. Any more questions or comments on deferral? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
And this is for the deferral.
Correct.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Cox,
No.
Brown, Councilman Brown,
Somebody needs to mute their mic because we can hear you.
Yes.
Councilman Harrison, Harrison,
No.
Pritchard,
No.
Stevens,
No.
Mayor.
Yes, motion fails. We are on the second motion in order to suspend. Are there any further questions or comments on the motion to suspend? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yep.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Mayor.
No, and the motion carries. This does have,
Mr. Mayor, there's also an emergency on this.
just getting ready to say that, but good catch anyway.
All right, good deal.
I take a motion in a second on the emergency motion, Councilman Smith. I will second. Any further discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We're on to agenda number 5, presentation and discussion of fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. Are you doing this PowerPoint, didn't it?
Mayor, members of the council, I'm pleased to present the preliminary budget for the operating period of 2020, 2021 for the city of McAlester. As you're all aware, we are in some difficult times here at the city. We started off with the oil and gas industry that had fallen apart on us. And as everybody's aware, the last 2 months we've been working under the guidelines of the COVID-19 coronavirus. With all of that in mind, we've done a tremendous amount of modeling of the city, trying to predict what is going to happen with all of these businesses being shut down and all of this social distancing, and how we bring this city back, and at what level do we bring this city back. So these models that we have put together, we've isolated into retail businesses, hotel motel businesses, restaurant businesses, and then other businesses, and tried to predict, based on what we're seeing around our community, what we think the total impact will be to the city as we move forward. This budget depicts what we believe is going to happen based on the information we have right now. Keep in mind that we don't really have any solid information. We do not have any detail. This virus, when we shut down the city, started around the middle of March. We have information on sales tax revenue through March the 15th. We don't have any detail past that, so we've had to go on what we've seen out in the community. This budget reflects a budget decrease estimated at somewhere between $3.5 and $4 million. That type of an impact to this budget and to this city is very dramatic. I think you've seen some of that impact based on the information that we provided you yesterday. First and foremost, I want to thank our finance department, Sherry Swift, our CFO, Kara Coy, Tony Irvin, our assistant city manager, all of our departments, all of our employees who have worked tirelessly in trying to predict what the future of this city looks like. Based on all of that input and all of this information, I'm going to present what we are proposing for the upcoming fiscal year. If I can get this thing to work.
Battery must be dead. It hit the space bar. Just a second. Let me restart it. The computer locked up on it.
Just do it from memory, can't you?
It sat there.
I got it right here,
It sat there too long.
but this is more for the general public to see what's going on.
Technical issues. Let me get it back up.
Mayor and council, I'm going to go ahead and start out, and we can get, as we get this pulled back up and get it rebooted. First and foremost, we're required by law to present a balanced budget, and I'm pleased to present that this budget is balanced. It does revenue to meet all expenditures. It also meets the requirement of maintaining a minimum reserve of 10% in our emergency fund. I'm going to go ahead and talk just a few minutes about our annual sales tax as we pull this program back up. To give you an idea of where we were in the current fiscal year budgeted for sales tax revenue, we were at almost $8.6 million budgeted sales tax. This budget reflects $6.8 million, or a difference of a reduction in sales tax of $1.8 million. One of the bright spots is our use tax. In the current fiscal year, we're budgeted at $1.9 million in use tax revenue. This budget actually bumps that up to almost $2.4 million, or an increase of about $450,000 in use tax. I think everybody's aware that our use tax has increased year over year for the last couple of years, and we don't see that changing any. Also in this budget, we have budgeted the additional $600,000 over a 6-month period of time for use tax on materials and supplies that are going to be brought in for the construction of the shopping center. And I'm pleased to announce that last week the contractor did move his equipment back on site, and this week they were actually out there working the site again, and so they are proceeding very quickly and getting all of their plans and engineering approved through the city.
Almost there.
So I'll go over those graphs once I have the opportunity, once we can pull the program up. Our general fund budget for departmental expenditures, I'm going to look at the pie graph, the second pie graph. In 2019, 2020 compared to 2020, 2021. In the current fiscal year, our fire department was 27% of all expenditures in the general fund. This year that has increased to 31%. of all expenditures. Our police department this year is 33% of expenditures. In the upcoming fiscal year, they have increased to 35%. Our streets department, which was 9%, has decreased to 8%. Our community service department, which was 12%, which is our parks, recreation, cemeteries, Stipe Center, all of those type of facilities, was 12% in the current fiscal year. In the upcoming year, it is 8%. Our administration and planning, 19% this year. In the upcoming year is planned for 18%. I'm going to move on to the MPWA. MPWA projected revenues for the upcoming year. We talk about how wet these fiscal years have been, and we continue to see record rainfall, which is not great for water sales. What that does is that causes people in the summertime not to water their yard as much or have to do the maintenance that they normally would do in taking care of their homes and their properties. Okay. Mayor and council, I'm going to go back real quick because I want to show the general public our annual sales tax. This graph shows an awful lot. If you look at 2019, 2020, our budgeted sales tax was $8.5 million. And as you can see, our projected annual sales tax for the upcoming year is $6.8 million, $6.78 million, a dramatic decrease of $1.8 million. This kind of gives you an indication of what we're seeing right now. Our use tax is, this year is budgeted at 1.9, our projected is 1.6, and that projection is down because we had actually projected in this year that use tax off of the shopping center, and that did not happen during this fiscal year. It's going to take place in the 2020-2021 budget year. So that's where we get the projection of $2.379 million in the upcoming year. As I indicated earlier, we have seen use tax grow incrementally year after year, and we anticipate that trend to continue into the future as people transfer on to online sales. What I was talking about earlier was our 2019-2020, the expenditures by department. And as you can see, the increases and decreases by the departments, that is an indication of the total operating expenditures for the city. I just started on water sales, MPWA fund, water sales. As you can see, our water sales are decreasing by about $170,000 in the upcoming year. We're anticipating our district water sales to be down almost $400,000 in the upcoming year. Our sewer is a calculation based on water sales, so that means that that's going to be down about $100,000. Our garbage rates are pretty stagnant. They don't change much. And then the other accounts is all the other small accounts. Yes, sir.
Why do you predict water sales are going down? We've already been about as wet as we can be.
What we are doing on the proposed budget is we have annualized our sales for this year and anticipated that to be the same for the upcoming year. So we overestimated our water sales for 1920, and what we're going on is what we've annualized for the upcoming year. And we did that for our district water sales and also our sewer.
Thanks.
I can tell you that we have identified 8 large meters in our districts and also in some of our large customers. And those meters have been ordered, and they'll be going into the ground in the next 30 to 60 days because we believe that some of those larger meters have slowed down because of age. So we're going to be correcting that problem moving forward. So as you can see, a decrease of about $630,000 in revenue in the upcoming year in our MPWA fund. This is the breakdown of our expenditures. Our refuse collection, which is a large dollar amount, which is what Republic Services charges us in order to have all of our refuse collected at our homes and our businesses. Our wastewater treatment facility is 12% of all expenditures. Utility maintenance, and we have left utility maintenance intact. I think everybody's aware that we have a lot of broken sewer lines, a lot of broken water lines here in the city, and so we've left that employment level almost completely intact. Our water treatment, which is under a contract, utility billing, which is our office downstairs, which also takes care of our meter readers and the replacement of the smaller meters, the residential meters, our engineering department, and our landfill, which for most is pretty much closed down except for 4 hours per month. We have one employee out there. And then also have to meet the requirements of DEQ for all monitoring of our wells and those type of things going forward. So that's kind of the breakdown of where the expenditures go in the MPWA. Talk a little bit about some of the other agencies. Our Defense Consultant Services, that is our lobbying effort in Washington, D.C. That works with our congressional delegation and our senators. Keep McAlester Beautiful, which is Pride. These agencies have all been cut. Their budget's been cut 20%. So Pride in McAlester was $60,000, has been decreased to $48,000. Pittsburgh County Emergency Management was $50,000. In this budget is $40,000. Our Main Street program, which was $30,000, has been cut to $24,000. OML membership is based on population. That's pretty much stays the same. Oklahomans for Independent Living was $24,000. We cut it 20% to $19,200, and we actually received a letter from them yesterday that said that they got some additional funding, and their request for this upcoming year is $18,000. We are not allocating any funds for the Sun Belt Classic or Pittsburgh County Child Advocacy. In the past, the Sun Belt was budgeted at $15,000. Pittsburgh County Child Advocacy was $5,000, which was only done 1 year. As you can see, our nutrition fund continues to cost the city more and more every year. The revenues on that is now $46,000. We continue to see those revenues decrease. And the expenditure on the city side is $250,000, which is a direct impact to the general fund. Our airport fund, which is our airport revenues, which we receive off of the hangars and a small amount off of fuel sales out there, is $93,800. Our expenditures of $117,000. General fund will be funding the airport $23,000 in the upcoming year. And then our expo, we looked at that, and I've got to tell you, we do not have a plan in place yet for the expo. Right now, we only have one employee assigned out there. Everybody else has either taken early retirement or has been furloughed. We're looking at what it takes to maintain it right now. I think this number is a little bit high, but we are anticipating, if it reopens, revenues of about $60,000, expenditures of $315,000, or a total cost of about $254,000. This is interesting. This is our bond payments. This is the 1 cent dedicated sales tax. Our sales tax revenue is estimated to be about $3.4 million. In the prior years, that sales tax revenue on that 1 cent was about $4.2 million. So we've seen a decrease of about $800,000 in that penny. Our bond payments stay the same, $4,500,000. $594, almost $4.6 million, a difference of $1.2 million. Last year, we budgeted the shortfall, which came out of the MPWA, was $353,000. This year, we are budgeting $489,000, which leaves a shortfall of $724,000. Every month when we make a payment on our bonds, we have a certain amount that goes into a reserve fund. And that's for those balloon payments that are due in the next 10, 12, 13, 14 years. We currently have about $2.4, $2.6 million in reserve. Our proposal is to utilize some of that reserve fund to the tune of $725,000 and pay in order to meet our obligation for the upcoming year on our bonds. And then we would repay that the following year when the economy came back. We've talked to the bank, the bonding bank, and we're okay to do this moving forward. But right now, if we had to put another $725,000 expenditure in the budget, it would be extremely dramatic what the overall effect would be. Go over our personnel and benefits. I think this is probably what interests everybody the most. Talk a little bit about our benefits. We will be maintaining our health, vision, dental, life, disability, and insurance at 100% covered for the employees. We will maintain the fire pension at 14%, which is required by a state. Police pension at 13%. And we are suspending, or we will continue the non-uniform pension plan, which is if the employee puts in 6% of their pay, the city matches it with 3%. So the city's cost to the non-uniform employees is 3%. In the past, we've had a discretionary 2% that was budgeted on a year-to-year basis. We are suspending that 2% contribution for all the non-uniform employees for the upcoming year. So a lot of what's happening here is coming on the backs of our employees and their benefits. Our budgets have been cut to the point where our largest components is payroll and benefits. And in order to make this budget work, we've had to change our tactics when it came to personnel and benefits. Here's the schedule going forward. This year compared to last year, we had 35 in administration. We're at 21. We had 62 in police. We're at 56. We've lost 2 in the fire department, down to 41. Our community services, which are our people that mow our parks, our recreational facilities, our cemeteries, maintain the right-of-ways out on the highways, basically do all the mowing and cleanup around the city, has been cut from 31 down to 13. We've talked about this in the past. Out of 17 parks, we are looking to maintain 3 or 4 of those in the upcoming year. We're trying to partner up with other organizations like Pride and McAlester to get volunteers to be able to help and maintain the rest of the parks and our cemeteries. We currently only have 2 employees in the cemetery, and we do not have access to any prisoners. So we will not be mowing, we'll be mowing the areas adjacent to the streets in our cemeteries, but our cemeteries are gonna suffer in the upcoming year. All cemeteries. Our public works, this is our streets department and related areas, has gone from 28 employees down to 16. Our public utilities, here again, we need to maintain this group because of the large amount of breaks that we have in our water and sewer lines and the age of our infrastructure. I think it would be it would not be good for us to deplete those employees and those areas with the age of our infrastructure. So as you can see, budgeted for last year was 223 employees. In the upcoming year, it's 170. It's pretty dramatic loss. The capital fund budget will continue to incur the cost for our water tower maintenance agreements, which is $155,600. That's the interior and exterior maintenance of all 6 of our water towers in town. That's something that has to be done every year. And our lease payments, which is all of our vehicles and equipment, $498,582. We have no other funds set aside for any capital expenditures of equipment in the upcoming year. Our infrastructure fund balance, which is the half cent that the citizens gave us a couple of years ago, that additional half cent for infrastructure. Last year was about $2.2 million. This year we anticipate about $1.7 million due to the decrease in sales tax. And you can see that we're maintaining the bulk of our programs going forward with our street reconstruction, our concrete panels, our asphalt overlay program. We've got money set aside on the wastewater plant. That will be in conjunction with Plummer, who is the engineers that are finalizing their study right now on our wastewater plants. $100,000 for lift stations, water and sewer line replacements, and facility maintenance, the maintenance of our 57 structures here at the city of McAlester. I want to talk just for a couple of minutes about the overall impact and some of the deductions that have come out of this budget. As I talked about earlier, the bulk of all of this is falling on the employees of the city of McAlester and the benefits associated with each and every one of our employees. We are taking this budget down to 170 positions. If you look at the overall budget and compare that to police, fire, and 911, which are all crucial public safety for the city, that leaves us with about 65 to 70 employees to run all other operations of the city. The benefits, we talked about a few minutes ago, that 2% defined contribution has been suspended. In the budget, all clothing and boot allowance has been suspended. Merit increases for the upcoming year has been suspended. We looked at a pay decrease for all employees of 5% across the board. That would generate about $500,000 in this budget. Instead of doing that with a lot of input from our employees and everything, we talked about doing furloughs. And so what we are going to do in the upcoming year is we are going to schedule 8 furlough days for all employees, 1 a month for 8 months, actually 1 a month for 10 months because we're going to start it in May and June of this year and then 8 months into next year. And the feedback we got from the employees is you take 5% from us, it's just gone. If we can get the same effect, give us a furlough day, which is a no pay day, but at least we get the day off. And so that made sense. So we're going to be scheduling the furlough days. Also in this budget, if you look at materials and supplies for all departments, we have decreased everybody's materials and supplies in all departments by 10% across the board. And Mayor, this is dramatic. Okay, this is not anything I've ever seen. 11 years ago, we cut about $1.5 million out of the budget when we had the Depression, and that was pretty dramatic. But to try to move somewhere between $3.5 and $4 million out of this budget, We've had to furlough a lot of employees. We've had 14 employees that took early retirement. Those positions are frozen. We had 8 vacant positions that are also frozen at this time, and then all of the furloughs of all of our employees that are home right now wondering what their future is. The one nice thing about the furloughs, all of our employees that are on furlough, we continue, they're eligible to collect state unemployment and also the federal unemployment, which is the additional $600. And the city, because they are on furlough, we continue to pay their health, dental, vision, life insurance, and long-term disability while they are on furlough. So we do have additional costs in this budget, expenses in this budget to maintain those benefits for our employees while they are on furlough.
I think it's important for the furloughed employees to know as well that the fact that they are furloughed indicates that the intent to bring them back whenever the situation improves as the money comes in. That because otherwise it would have just been layoffs. But doing furloughs, we want them to be able to come back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. The schedule, upcoming schedule, what we're doing tonight on April the 28th, we are required to present a preliminary budget 45 days prior to the last day of the fiscal year. We have met that requirement. We will be publishing this budget in a newspaper probably this weekend to meet that requirement. We will be scheduling a joint budget workshop with the City Council and the Audit and Finance Committee. It is our intent to schedule that with the first meeting in May. The second meeting in May, we plan on having a public hearing on the preliminary annual budget for input from the general public, and then adopt this budget on June the 9th. So that is the schedule, and we will meet all requirements of the charter under that schedule.
I have a question on because this budget is less than previous budgets, and our emergency fund is required to be 10%. You know, earlier this year, we authorized spending up to $500,000 from that emergency fund.
Yes.
And because this budget is going to be less, that 10% obviously requirement is going to be less. Would the money that, if that $500,000 had to be used, would it have to be paid back under that?
It will not, Mayor, and the reason is because prior to you giving us the $500,000, we were at about $3.8 million in the fund. We estimated we needed about $3.1 million to meet the 10% minimum requirement. That brought us down to $3.3 million. Now with this reduced budget, I haven't looked at the actual number, but I would imagine that number is somewhere around $2.8 million is the minimum 10% requirement for the budget.
Okay.
And we have not spent any of that $500,000 that was set aside for operations as we move forward. But we do anticipate having to use it over the next 2 months. So that's a whole lot of information. What I would ask each and every one of you is to go through the budget, look through it. If you could, send us your questions ahead of the council meeting so that we can have all of those addressed and ready to go and be able to talk about it at the next council meeting. If we all show up with 20 questions each, we may not have those answers. And if we have them ahead of time, we can research them and get those answers for everybody. So with that, I'll take any questions that anybody has.
Councilwoman Harrison?
This is Councilwoman Harrison. Mr. Stasiak, on the people that took early retirement or furlough, are any of those department heads?
Yes, they are.
I know that the chief of police, he's going to be retiring on the 30th, and all the positions are frozen, right? So what happens in, say, in a situation like his, where he was the administrator over that department, is there the next in line takes over, or how does that?
Councilwoman Harrison,
Or is that-
what we've done is we identify critical positions that have to be filled here at the city. If something was to happen to me, I would expect this council to replace this position even though we're in a hiring freeze.
Okay.
Same thing is gonna happen with the chief of police, and
That's what
I was gonna announce during my city manager's report, but Chief Wansick is retiring on the 30th. I've tried to ask him to stay longer. He's not gonna, it's time for him to go. And today, I appointed Captain Kevin Hurd, as interim police chief, while we look to fill that position permanently.
Now, even in a freeze, you still can go ahead because that's a vital position, is this what you're saying? Or he's just gonna be the interim until this,
And we will
virus is
go forward with filling that position.
Oh, okay.
That is a position that has to be filled here at
that's
the
what I
city.
was wondering, it's
Yes.
a vital position. And how many of the other ones were, I'm sorry, do I need
Okay, no,
to, Councilwoman Harrison again, how many of the other, department head
Most of them were supervisors, managers and
took
supervisors.
early retirement, or that are furloughed, or both?
I don't know, I don't have that exact
Oh,
number.
you know, okay, all right, so I was just wondering.
I focused more on the positions, and seeing what was needed in order to move this city going forward.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes,
Uh,
ma'am.
Any other questions, or any questions from the call-in?
Mayor, this is Councilman Pritchard. Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
City manager, could we get a table of contents and page numbers on this budget?
Absolutely.
It's difficult for me to remember where things are. I don't know if that will help me, but it'll give me a better chance.
Well, I'll tell you, I had to go in and flag all of it with little sticky notes, so if I had difficulty with it, I'm sure that everybody else did too, and we will get some indexes for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Councilwoman Harrison?
This is Councilwoman Harrison again. Pursuant to the furloughs, is everyone going to come back at the same time, city manager, or you're gonna call back the ones that are in these departments that really need to, that the community really needs their service? How is that gonna be done, if you don't mind my asking?
What we will do is we'll look at our revenues on a month-to-month basis. I'm sure our revenue's not gonna go up $1.8 million in 1 month.
No,
That's
I
what it would
understand.
take to bring all of those employees.
It would take 1.8 million to get everybody back
For the general fund.
for the general fund, okay?
Yeah, probably another 600,000 or 700,000 for the MPWA and all other departments.
Okay,
So what we will do is, if we have an increase over our budget for sales tax or water sales or those type of things, because we have budgeted all those positions, we have not budgeted dollars to those positions. What we would do is we'd come back to the council and say, our sales tax increased $100,000 for the month of June, and we're asking for funding for this position, and this position.
oh, okay.
And so then would allocate those dollars, and then we would call those people back.
Oh, all right.
And that's based on needs of the city.
Oh, okay. So let me get the people that are furloughed, and I forgot what the number was on that. Was it 20?
No, it's 35,
Oh,
37,
30, oh, okay. All right, that's on, all right. So each person that is furloughed, the city, the council is going to have to vote for them to be back on their position? Is
No,
this what you're saying?
you're gonna vote to allocate the funds.
Oh, we're voting to
So
allocate.
that we can bring back the position.
Okay, we're gonna vote it for the allocation of the funds so that the position can be filled.
Yes,
Okay, all right, thank you.
based on needs of the city.
Based on- right.
As we look at the entire city as a package.
Right,
Okay, and what are the priorities of the city?
sure.
What we've talked about in the past are the 5 core areas: fire, police, streets, water, and sewer.
So those are,
And those are the areas that we will focus on to direct those dollars,
To direct those dollars to them.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
knowing that we have all of these other positions
Right.
that need to be taken care of too.
May I say, do you think any of these, the individuals, the city workers that are furloughed would take another position? In other words, would somebody, we'll just say, I forgot the name of the department, we'll say somebody from Public Works, could they apply for another position? Some that maybe were early retirement or something else? Is there a possibility for them to do that too?
If they're qualified, of
Well, that's
course.
what I meant, if they're
Yeah,
qualified.
If they're qualified, of course.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, just really quickly before we move off of this item, because it's been a while since we've heard from everybody, could you call roll for people on the phone? Cora?
Thank you.
Councilman Pritchard,
I'm still here.
Smith,
Yes.
Stevens,
Here.
Cox,
Here.
Brown,
Here.
Harrison,
Here.
Mayor.
Here, thank you. Mr. Stazak?
Mayor, I need to make one other statement, looking at our police officer in the back here. We have not made any cuts to fire and police other than the freezing of the positions. We are in negotiations with fire and police and trying to negotiate those contracts. And currently what we are asking from both fire and police are reductions of about $500,000 in total. And like I said, we're working with the union membership to start identifying where those areas are.
Unless there's any other questions or comments, we will move on to new business. Any matter not known or which could not have been reasonably foreseen prior to the time of post.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes. Yes.
I'm sorry, I couldn't get my phone to cooperate. Mr. Stasiak, when do we have the most recent sales tax numbers? And you might have said this and I didn't hear.
Yeah, we have received preliminary numbers for the period, I gotta remember where we're at, from March the 16th, and these are not final numbers, March the 16th to April the 15th, which would be that first month, and we were $218,000 under budget and $249,000 under last year. And, you know, we were anticipating a much larger number. In talking to the revenue people up at the state, they indicated that there was a tremendous amount of shopping that went on with people hoarding, and also people have been spending their checks that they got from the government. So I think these are one-time increases, but not as bad as we anticipated, but still pretty dramatic.
If I can make a request, when we get those numbers, instead of waiting to bring it to our council meeting because we have such kind of a large kind of looming budget in front of us with a lot of hard decisions, could we have an emergency meeting and discuss those numbers and look at those as well? Maybe have a couple other items on there.
How about this first? We just have those numbers sent out to each council member, and then if the result of that causes the council to think that we need an emergency meeting, we could call one.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll get the numbers to everybody before we determine if we need to call an emergency meeting.
And if I could, Mayor, the interesting thing about that is for this period that we're in right now, which ended on April the 15th, we don't get final numbers until May the 10th. And then we don't get the detail until somewhere around May 20th to May 25th. So even though we have the number, we don't have any detail associated with that with that number. So it's all about timing as we move forward.
Any other questions, comments? And then we will move We will move on to new business. Any matter not known or which could not have reasonably been foreseen prior to the time of posting the agenda in accordance with Section 311.9, Title 25 Oklahoma State statutes. Do we have any new business?
We do not.
In that case, we will go to the city manager's report.
Mayor, members of the council, the initial letter that I used to shut down all facilities here at the city of McAlester comes to a conclusion on Thursday, April the 30th at midnight. I will be issuing an extension to that letter tomorrow, extending that shutdown until the middle of May. Next week, we will start looking at what reopening City Hall and all other facilities look like. I'm not saying that we're going to do it the middle of May. I'm just saying that we're going to start looking at it and see what we can do to make sure that our employees are safe, have all of the necessary protective equipment that they need, and also what the public needs in order to enter this building. So we'll start evaluating that, but we are extending that April 30th deadline. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is the CARES Act had money in it for airports, and based on the size of our airport, we have been awarded $69,000 for materials, supplies, payroll, and benefits in the upcoming year. So even though I showed you a number of $23,000 needed to be funded, that $69,000 will help offset some of those operations. The other thing I just want to spend a quick moment, if I could, and talk about Police Chief Wansik. 5 years ago, I asked him to be, or maybe 7, I can't even remember anymore, to be the interim police chief while we were looking for a new police chief. And I got to know Chief Wansik very, very well during that period and found out what a phenomenal individual he is and how well he not only works with the police force, this criminal investigation division, works with all agencies here at the city. It became a wonderful relationship over this period of time. I hate to see him leave. I know why he's leaving. It's not for anything that's happened here at the city. It's for personal reasons. And I just want to thank him for everything that he's done for this city and brought a new standard to the way we've operated around here, not with just police, but all of our departments. I am excited about Captain Kevin Hurd, stepping into this position and taking care of our officers moving forward. I am absolutely convinced that he has the abilities to move this department forward while we look for filling that police chief's position going forward. So thank you, Kevin Hurd, and Chief Wansik, thank you very much.
We will move to remarks and inquiries by City Council. Councilman Smith.
I wanted to thank Pete and his staff for all the work they put in. I don't know how they cut this much money out of the budget. Also thank all of our employees and regret the ones that are being furloughed, but hope we'll recover and bring them back in the very near future. And I want to say I appreciate the work that Gary Wansik's also done. Appreciate his years of service.
Vice Mayor Stevens.
Yes. I just want to thank the council this evening for taking some action to maybe hopefully provide some relief to people in the community. But I'd also like to tell the city employees, and especially the non-uniform ones, that this falls a lot on their backs of when the budget really doesn't meet, that I appreciate them. And I know that this isn't easy for them and their families. And I hope there's a way that we as a council, as things continue to move forward, that we can become creative, just like I feel like we've had to be, and bring them back as quickly as we can. And if not, I hope that there's ways that we can continue to help them going forward as well too. So thank you guys for all that you all do at the city. And please continue as we go forward, guys, just to echo some of the comments again, to wear masks in public places. Please continue to wash your hands and sanitize. Please continue to maintain social distancing. As a council and as a community, we don't wield the sword. this council wields a pen, and we try to enact policies that are going to be best for all of us and protect us and keep us safe and do things, but by no means are we going to beat down doors and do things like that. But I would encourage people to continue to maintain this, because this isn't over. It's going to be in a long haul, apparently, for everything we see, and I hope that's not true, but just kind of seems like everything that's going on, it is. But please do that, and to fellow business owners and everything like that, please be mindful of the environment that you can control and doing your part. I know that we're trying to do our part in my office, because we go into a lot of people's homes and we take that seriously with their families. So please continue to do that. If I can help y'all in any way, please reach. Thank you, guys.
Councilman Cox?
I would just like to wish Chief Wanzik congratulations upon his retirement, and I hope he enjoys it. I think he will be missed in the community. He's provided some great leadership over the years, and just to all the city employees, thank you for everything that you do every single day. I think that a lot of us in the community take the things that they do for granted, and we just need to show our support and thank them for literally everything they do and every decision that they make.
Councilman Brown?
Yes, sir. I want to thank the city employees and all the hard work they've done putting this budget together. Pete, working tirelessly, trying to get it all together and bring it to us. Also, Chief Wanzik, I'm really going to miss him. And I say this all the time, he's one of my former students, and he's retiring on me. And Kevin Hurd is one of my former students as well, so that makes me proud of these guys to see much what they do in life, knowing that I've been a part of it. So thank you, guys.
I'm pretty sure that every person in McAlester is one of your former students, Councilman Brown. Councilwoman Harrison?
Thank you. I would like to also thank Chief Wanzik for his service, and he will be missed. I would also like to thank the McAlester Public Schools. It hasn't been easy for them the teachers and the support staff, the superintendent, and all those that are part of the McAlester Public Schools to make this transition from actually having students in a classroom to having to go online and deal with packets and connectivity. There's a lot more to it than we would imagine. And so I certainly want to express my appreciation to them. Also to the city employees, not only of McAlester, but any person that's being furloughed or any person that's being laid off. I know it's not easy, but just keep your head up. Know that there is a position somewhere for you. The small business community, don't forget to check in with the banks and try to do it speedily before the funds are gone again. And also to the health community for all the things that they're doing to keep us safe, and I do appreciate that. I would like to ask City Manager one quick question, if it's okay, Mayor, about the expiration of April 30th deadline. What did you say is going to transpire? Are you going to put out something?
Yes, I'm issuing another letter
Okay.
extending that to May the 15th.
You're extending it to, all right. So the business people that were here today, I think there was someone from the gym and all like that, are they allowed to go ahead and open up their businesses, or we have to wait for that next phase?
You know, gyms, restaurants, well centers, there's a list that are in the first phase. And
Right.
if they go to the Department of Commerce website, there's a listing of who can open up in that first phase, and then what the requirements are.
Oh, okay, all right, because I know we'll probably be asking, I wanted to, okay, all right, thank you so much.
Councilman Pritchard?
No, thank you.
Okay. We'll move to remarks or mayor's comments and committee appointments. Want to definitely say congratulations to Chief Wanzik. I personally think he's irreplaceable in his manner. I think that Captain Hurd will do a great job as well. He won't be the same as Chief Wanzik, but he will be unique in his own right and do an incredible job for the city and for the department. talk to the city employees and let them know that this is a bad time, and if there was any other way to do what we have to do, we would be doing it. I've spoken with the city manager many, many times on this subject, and we are trying to do it with the minimum impact as possible that can have on the furloughed employees. It's going to be, I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, and I'm not going to say it's going to be good, because it's not going to be either one of those. It's going to be hard, but at least we've been able to keep the insurance going, which is an incredibly important thing, especially during a pandemic. And we will continue to do what we can to get you guys back to work as quickly as we possibly can. And just know that we're all in it together, and that you guys are, at least from my point of view, a priority for us to get back to work. The other couple things, I want to give a big thank you out to Mike Pruitt and his brother, who unfortunately I don't know his brother's name, but they are the guys that have started the trailer that's going around town playing music in neighborhoods. And so they have live bands. They pull up into the neighborhood, and everyone's required to stay on their porches to listen to it. And it's getting they played over by my house last night, and it gets people are really enjoying it, and it's a nice thing to do. And Mike had called me and asked if it was possible to do it, and I said I can't see any reason why we couldn't. And so they've taken it, and it's just a plus for the community. And we have an awful lot of people in the community that are doing things to help other people. And that's, once again, one of the great things about being mayor of McAlester is the people that we have here that work to help people when people are in need. And then just finally, in closing, I want to, I can't require it, but I want to request that everyone wear a mask when they go out, when they, we have a lot of things that have been put in place that employees have to do, but we don't have those things for customers. I would like to ask anybody that is going to go into a business, go into it as if they are an employee, and take the necessary precautions to keep from from getting infected or from infecting anybody else. And with that, we will recess the council meeting, and I would take a motion in a second to convene as McAlester Airport Authority. Motion to include approval of minutes from April 4th, 2020, regular meeting of McAlester Airport Authority. Confirm action taken on City Council Agenda items C, F, G, 1, 2, and 6, and to adjourn. Motion, Councilman Smith. I will second. Any discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yeah.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. I would now take a motion and a second to convene as McAlester Public Works Authority. Motion to include approval of minutes from April 14th, 2020, regular meeting of McAlester Airport Authority. Confirm action taken on City Council Agenda items C, 1, 2, 4, and 6, and to adjourn. Motion, Councilman Smith, and I will second. Is there any discussion? Or would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yeah.
Brown,
Yeah.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. I would now take a motion to convene as McAlester Retirement Trust Authority. Motion to include approval of minutes from the March 25th, 2020 regular meeting of McAlester Retirement Trust Authority. Approval of retirement benefit payments for the period of April 2020. Confirm action taken on City Council Agenda Item 1, an ordinance amending the City of McAlster's defined contribution retirement plan, and to adjourn. Motion, Councilman Smith. Second, Councilwoman Harrison. Any discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yeah.
Brown,
Yeah.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. I would now take a motion to go into an executive session in compliance with Section Title 25, section 307B.2 at sequence Oklahoma statutes, to wit, consider an act to convene an executive session pursuant to Title 25 Oklahoma State Statutes 307B1 for confidential communications between a public body and its attorney to discuss the employment, hiring, appointment, promotion, demotion, disciplining, or resignation of any individual, salaried public officer or employee, more particularly City Manager Pete Stasiak. So take a motion and a second to go into executive session. Motion, Councilman Smith. I will second. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, this is Councilman Pritchard. How long do we think this is going to take?
I don't anticipate it taking very long at all. Of course, that's going to depend on how much discussion there is, but personally, I don't think it'll take 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at my house, so this is more about you all, but there's some storms coming in. So if you all have any concerns about, being up there while the storms are moving in, it may not be the best idea to do this session right now.
Do it at the next council
But
meeting.
I can do it from my basement if I need to.
Yeah, I'm good with
Yeah,
here.
let
This
one
is, this is actually a place where people have gone for storm shelter in the past, so,
Okay.
yeah. So I forgot where it was. I had a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? And Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and we're now in executive session. I believe we'll be hanging up this phone that you've been on, and I'll be calling you from my phone when we get upstairs.